Hey, what's up you guys? Welcome back to my channel. Now I know it's been a little bit since my last post, but that's because I want to transition into some more higher quality videos for spooky season. So bear with me if my uploads are a little bit sporadic because I'm trying something new. But if you want to see what I'm up to on the regular, you guys can follow me on Twitter and on Instagram. Usually I'll post like little sneak peeks for future videos along with some other projects that I'm working on. So if you want to keep up with me on the day-to-day, you guys can follow me on those platforms. So for today's video, I'm going to be doing a little arts and craft project. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I love doing crafts in my spare time. Now, I'm more of an artist. That's like my career by trade. I went to school for art and also creative writing. I gotta announce myself a little bit there, but I love doing arts and crafts in my spare time. It is so much fun because you get to use your creativity in a completely different way. So today I'm going to show you guys how I made this really simple spooky Halloween wreath. You guys can see me right through the wreath right there. It's very, very easy to do. I'm going to show you guys what you're gonna need to make it, how I made it, and roughly how long it's going to take you to make it. So let's just get started. Alright, so for this project, you are going to need a wire wreath form, mine is 14 inches by the way. You're also going to need some Halloween filler. I'm using these little foam skulls. You're also going to need some ribbon with wire in it, some hot glue sticks, a hot glue gun, some Halloween artificial flowers, and the most important piece of this project is a bunch of Halloween garland. And you are also going to need some scissors. Now, the amount of garland you will need to use will vary depending on how fluffy you want your wreath to be. If you want a really fluffy garland, you're going to need to use quite a bit of Halloween garland. For this project, I'm using 9-foot garland and I'm using approximately 6 pieces of garland to create this project, but you can use less or more depending on your preferences. You're going to take the garland to the base of the wreath form, and you're going to kind of tuck it in under one of the wires and then pull it out, and then tuck it in and then pull it out. So you're essentially doing a under, over sort of weaving pattern to get the garland attached to the wire wreath form. And once you have it on the other side, you're just going to repeat the pattern back and pull it through to the other side. Once you have the two ends meeting up again, you're just going to make a tiny little knot at the base, and this will keep your garland from moving. Just be careful that you don't make the knot too tight, because once you make the knot, it's very difficult to undo it. But once you have the base set up, then you can begin wrapping the garland around the wreath. Make sure you are wrapping it tightly so that way the wire form doesn't peek through. Once you're done with one piece of garland, you're going to take the ends, and then you're just going to do an under, over sort of pattern again, just to secure the garland from moving. And you're just going to take the end, and then you're just going to create a little knot by wrapping it around another piece of garland. Garland is very easy to work with, so if you just tuck it into another piece of itself, it will easily attach and will very much stick to itself. So you can do a tiny little knot onto another piece of garland as well if you don't want to do that, and then just essentially do a train of garland pieces that will not fall apart. Garland usually has a little bit of wire in it, so that helps it stay steady, and it's a type of really thin wire as well, so really, really versatile for these types of crafts. And as you can see here, I'm just doing an under, over pattern, and then I'm just tucking it into another piece of the same garland.
So it's pretty self-explanatory, but if you don't want to create the garland base, you can also find the wreath forms that already have the garland attached to it at your local dollar store or 99-cent store if you're in the States. So it's really easy to come by because of just how simple they are to make. So here I'm just adding some more garland. It's starting to get really poofy on one side. And this is why you want to make sure it's nice and compact so you don't get any lumpy areas. Clearly I did not do that, so I'm gonna go back in a little bit later and really add some more garland to add extra fluff. And if at any point you feel like you weren't wrapping it tight enough, you can actually go back and redo the wrapping if you haven't already knotted it. As you can see here, I made a mistake. I wasn't paying attention when I was wrapping, so I left that piece a little bit too loose. So if you run into that problem, you're going to take some scissors and you're just going to do like a really basic knot and then tuck in the pieces into the wreath itself. It's a really easy fix. So like I said before, garland is very, very easy and it's very forgiving. So if you make a mistake, if you don't do it tight enough, you can always cut the garland and make a knot and then just tuck in the pieces into itself and no one would know the difference. So now I'm adding the last few pieces of garland to the wreath. The wire form is no longer visible, at least from this point. But at this point, that's when I noticed that my garland isn't as fluffy as I would like it in certain areas. So right now I'm just seeing where it could use some more garland. And then I'm just taking one more piece of garland and applying it to the least fluffy area. Also, certain garlands are gonna be thinner than others. At the end of the video, I'm going to show you a different wreath that I made using a way fluffier garland, and it came out a lot fluffier using about the same amount of garland that I use in this video. So depending on the type of garland that you buy will also change the results of your wreath project. And then as you can see here, I'm just tucking in the last little piece of garland into the wreath form itself. And then you're basically done with adding the garland to the wreath base. Now here comes the fun part. For my wreath, I wanted to do a red and black floral theme. So I'm using about 8 different flowers, 4 black and 4 red. But you can use as many flowers as you want. I got these flowers from my local dollar store, so you can get anywhere between like 3 or 4 bunches of flowers for fairly inexpensive. Here, I'm just removing the plastic base. And now I'm just kind of deciding how I want the flowers to lay on the wreath. At this point, you can be fairly creative. If you just wanted to have flowers, you can just lay them down like I did here, glue them down, and then you're basically done with your project. But since I wanted to add some ribbon, I'm going to have to take some more steps. So right here, I'm just measuring how much ribbon I'm probably going to be using. And now I'm just laying my flowers to accommodate the ribbon space. So here I found that if I use a ribbon, I wasn't going to be able to use one of the black flowers. So I decided to just use 3 black flowers instead of 4. Once you decide on your length of ribbon, you're going to take some scissors, take your little piece of wire ribbon, and then tightly wrap it around the base of the wreath. Once you got that done, you're going to take a little bit of hot glue. Please be very careful when you're working with hot glue, guys. I don't want you to burn yourselves or hurt your animals or anything like that. Be very, very careful if you're working with hot glue. Once you're done applying your hot glue, you're going to fold the other piece of the ribbon right on top of it, and you're going to lightly press it with the edge of your fingers, but be very, very careful not to burn yourself. To help the glue stick, you can take the base of your scissors and press against the glue to make sure that the ribbon sticks very, very nicely. Try not to use your hands for this because the glue is very, very, very hot. Now that we're done with the base of our ribbon, we are actually going to do the bow portion of our ribbon. In this portion, you want to decide how big you want your ribbon to be. There's multiple ways to make ribbons, but this is just what I do and what's easiest for me. Normally what I will do is I will kind of loop a piece of ribbon around and then decide how thick I want it to be. Once I decide how thick it's going to be, then I begin to work from there. So as you can see, I wanted my ribbon to be a little bit thick, but not too thick. So I'm just creating like this little loop to kind of decide on the size. You can always take a bigger loop or cut off a bigger loop if you want a more pronounced bow. But if you want a thinner bow, you can just cut a shorter loop. So here I'm just adding the middle portion of the bow. I cut a piece of the wire ribbon and then folded it just in half. You can also leave it as is if you want a bigger centerpiece, but I wanted something small and cute, so I added the smaller piece to the middle of the bow. Once you decide on the position of your bow or how you want your bow to look like, then you can proceed. Here, I was just testing the two types of, I guess you could say, bow methods that I wanted to try out. But in the end, I went with the first one. If you decide to go with the first method that I showed, you're going to take the ribbon and then pinch the edges of the wire to make sure that it doesn't move at all, and you're just going to move your wreath form out of the way. And then, like before, you're going to take a little bit of hot glue and you're going to take the two pieces of ribbon together that you cut and then attach them. Hot glue does set fairly quickly, so be sure to work very quickly as well. You can always add more glue if it didn't stick very well. But after you attach both pieces of the loop, then you're going to add some hot glue to the middle portion of the ribbon. Here, you're just going to fold it and then you're going to apply the hot glue to the wire portion of the ribbon to make sure that it doesn't unravel itself. At this point, you're going to want to pinch the bow down. Because there's a little bit of hot glue, it might be a little bit difficult to pinch at first, but once you maneuver it a little bit, it shouldn't be too hard. So after you pinch it, you can fluff it to see if you like the way your bow is going to look before adding the middle portion to it. Once you decide you like the shape, then you're just gonna wrap the middle portion of the bow all the way around so it's completely wrapped. And then you're going to add some hot glue to the ribbon, and then you're just going to close both parts together. Hopefully that made sense, but if you have any questions on how to make the bow, feel free to meet me in the comments and I'll help you guys out. Make sure to add enough hot glue to this portion because it can come apart if there isn't enough. Do be careful not to burn your hands in this portion though, because this could be very, 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 very dangerous if you're not careful. Next, you're just gonna fluff up your bow, make it look nice and cute for no reason at all. And once you're satisfied with the shape, you can then see how it looks against your wreath form. Now, before we actually stick the bow to the wreath form, we are going to add the little like ribbon tails. So here I'm just deciding on how I want the ribbon tails to look. I decided I wanted to go with a very thin tail to kind of match the thin bow, but you can always do like a thicker tail if you want to. Use the base of your bow to kind of decide how long you want them to be. And once you decide that, you can cut them off. Be sure to fold down the ribbon so you can actually see what it's going to look like. If you're too lazy to actually measure your tails, you can just cut one piece of ribbon and then lay it on top of another one and cut it that way. Once you're done doing that, you're going to take some hot glue to the wire portion of the ribbon. Make sure you add a nice generous amount so it doesn't come apart. And then once you're done, you're just gonna fold the two pieces together. Pass your little scissors right over it to make sure it's secure. And that will keep the ribbon nice and thin. And then you're just going to repeat the process on the other piece of ribbon. You are going to need a hefty amount of glue sticks for this project, so be sure to go out and get a full pack before you get started. Be sure to work quickly when you're adding the hot glue to the ribbon. Since it's sticking onto the wire, it can actually dry pretty quickly. I'm not sure why that is, but it probably is because the coats of hot glue are a little too thin. But once you're done creating your tails, then you're just going to decide on the position that you want the tails to rest against the main part of the bow. Here, I'm just deciding to crisscross them to make my life a lot easier. But like I said earlier, there is probably more effective ways on how to make a bow, but this is just how I do it and how it's the easiest for me. So I'm going to take a little bit of hot glue onto one of the ribbon pieces, and I'm just laying the other one right on top, passing my scissors right over it to make sure that they stick. It's okay if you don't add too much glue because we're going to be gluing the whole thing to the base ribbon that's on our wreath. And then here, I'm just deciding that I'm going to probably cut off the excess of the tails because I don't really want the tails to like hang too long. But I'm also too lazy to like restart it, so that's why I'm kind of going with that method. So once you decide that you like your placement, then you're just going to take some hot glue and then wait for the glue to dry. While the glue dries on your ribbon, you can proceed to add some embellishments to your flowers if you want to. I got these little foam skulls from my local dollar store. You can also find them at other craft stores if you want. Basically, it has to be small enough to where it could fit inside of a flower if you choose to do this particular decoration. So what you're gonna do for this is that you're going to spread the petals apart. You want the center portion of the flower to be exposed. Then you're just gonna add some hot glue, and then you're just gonna press the skull right onto the flower. It should stick very, very quickly. And like always, if you need more hot glue, feel free to add more hot glue. Make sure that the skulls are nicely pressed in because they will pop off. My particular foam skulls are glittery, so they do require quite a bit of hot glue in order to get them to stick nicely. So be sure to press them and hold them until they're nice and dry. You can add just about anything into these flowers. I've seen some people do bats or pumpkins or anything. It's just about anything so long as it fits in the center of the flower. So feel free to get creative. And once you're done with your flowers, you can let them dry and then go back to your ribbon. So now my ribbon is completely dry and I'm just cutting off the excess ribbon that I didn't want to deal with. And now I'm just fluffing my bow up again because I like to fluff up bows. You can also add some extra embellishments to like the tails of your ribbon. I'm just adding these little triangle details because I think it looks cute. There's a variety of different like tail ends that you can do, but I like this one the very most. And to keep the ribbon from unraveling, I'm just gonna add a tiny bit of hot glue to the end so the ribbon doesn't unravel. You don't have to do this if you want your ribbon to have kind of like a worn in sort of look. But if you want to keep the ends nice and crisp, the glue will definitely help keep the ends from unraveling. Be careful when you press them together. Sometimes the glue can be very hot. And if you have some leftover hot glue strings or anything sticking out, you can just cut them off with your scissors. Now that that's all done and taken care of, you can again fluff up your bow for the 1000th time if you see fit. Now you're just going to add a generous amount of hot glue. Be very, very generous because you want this bow to really stick on there. Then you can just pinch the edges of the ribbon that's attached to the wreath so the ribbon itself won't move or budge. You can like glue the whole thing to the ribbon, but I prefer to leave it loose just so I have the ability to adjust it as needed. And now you're ready to glue down your flowers. Decide on your placement. Be sure not to hot glue them until you are completely satisfied with the placement of the flowers, otherwise you might cry and that might not be nice. Once you're satisfied, you're going to take a nice hefty amount of hot glue. You want this to be a nice hefty amount. And then you're just going to take the glue onto the flower and then press the flower right into the garland. This is why you want your garland to be nice and compact, because it's going to essentially hold your flower pieces together. The hot glue is very, very warm, so it will very easily attach to the garland. Do make sure that you are in a well-ventilated room because the plastic does melt a little bit and it does give off a bit of fumes. You always want to use more glue than less glue, because I have had the incident where I don't add enough glue and then one of the flowers just pops right out. So make sure you're using enough glue for these flowers. Once you're done gluing your last flower, you can pull out all of those like glue strings that hot glue tends to leave around. They pull out very easily and they won't pull out your flowers either. And at this point, you got a nice cute wreath for the spooky season.
And there you have it. I hope you found the tutorial to be rather informative. I tried to keep it as simple as possible because I want everybody to be able to make this. It took me about 2 hours to make it completely, and that's after struggling for a little bit there, as you might have seen. But it's actually very, very simple to do, and you can also do other designs. This is the very first wreath that I made earlier this, I guess you could say, summer. And this is why you guys should follow me on Instagram, because I did debut this on there. And as you can see, I used a more fluffier type of garland for this one, and I think it looks really, really cute. My friend was telling me that it looks like a Christmas wreath and a New Year's wreath put together, so I guess I don't have to change my wreath for the next like 3 holidays or so. But this is just another variation, so you guys can see just how versatile this particular wreath making style is. So there you have it. I am going to be doing more types of spooky crafts for the spooky season and beyond, so do subscribe if you want to see more of that content, and also like this video because it lets me know that you actually like this kind of content. But like always, guys, thank you so much for watching the video. I really appreciate you. Thank you for watching me finagle here on the tubes. I really appreciate y'all. And like always, like I say every single time at the end of all my videos, take care of yourselves, wash your hands, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Take care, guys.